Some scientists genuinely believe cooking food is the single reason your brain is big enough to watch this video right now. Not tools, not walking upright, cooking. One guy literally built an entire career arguing that fire didn't just change what we ate, it built the human brain. And honestly, the evidence is wild. And before you picture this as some simple caveman found fire, roasted a steak, the end story. Nope. This is actually one of the most argued about topics in all of human evolution. Scientists have been fighting about exactly when this started for literal decades. So let's get into the actual timeline, the actual evidence, and the actual argument. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're new here, we cover ancient history and human origins like this every week. Real science, zero boring textbook energy. Hit follow now so you don't miss the next one. So here's where this actually gets interesting. There's a Harvard anthropologist named Richard Wrangham who spent his entire career on one big claim. He thinks cooking is literally what turned our ancestors into humans. Not a nice bonus, not a lifestyle upgrade, the actual mechanism. His argument goes like this. Raw food takes a massive amount of energy to chew and digest. If you've ever watched a chimpanzee eat, they spend something like half of their entire day just chewing raw plants and fruit. Half the day. Just chewing. That's an enormous chunk of your daily energy budget going straight into digestion instead of anything else. But cooked food is different. Heat breaks down tough fibers and proteins before the food even reaches your mouth, which means your body has to do way less work to extract the calories. Less chewing, less digesting, more calories absorbed per bite. Wrangham's argument is that once our ancestors started cooking consistently, their bodies could actually afford to evolve smaller guts, smaller jaws, and smaller teeth, because digestion got so much easier. And all that freed up energy, he thinks it got redirected into growing something else, a bigger brain. Your brain, by the way, burns through roughly a quarter of your entire body's energy, even though it's only about 2% of your body weight. That is an insanely expensive organ to run, and Wrangham thinks cooking is what made affording it possible in the first place. So, that's the theory. Sounds solid, right? Here's the problem. Wrangham says this all kicked off around 1.8 million years ago. But there's one massive issue with that claim. Actual physical proof of fire that old is incredibly hard to find. So here's the issue. Fire doesn't exactly leave behind a nice obvious calling card after a million years. Wood turns to ash, ash blows away or gets buried, and after enough time, distinguishing ancient campfire from random wildfire that happened to nearby gets incredibly difficult, which means for a long time, Wrangham's 1.8 million year claim was mostly theoretical. Biology suggesting it should be true without hard proof to back it up. But here's where it gets good, because more recent digs have actually started closing that gap. At a site called Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found ash deposits about 30 meters deep inside the cave, so deep inside that there's basically no way it could have blown in from a random wildfire outside. That pushed solid evidence of controlled fire use back to around 1 million years ago, which is genuinely close to Wrangham's original claim. Then, even more recently, researchers working at a site called Gesher Benot Yaakov in Israel found something even more specific. Not just evidence of fire, but evidence of actual cooking. They found fish teeth from a species that would have needed to be heated to a very particular temperature range to leave the exact kind of damage found on the teeth, dated to a jaw-dropping 780,000 years ago. That's not just humans had fire nearby. That's humans were using fire specifically to prepare food, with actual physical proof way earlier than most scientists expected to find it. Okay, so we've got scattered proof going back close to 1 million years. But here's the twist. That's not when most scientists think cooking actually became a normal, everyday, every single human does this kind of thing. So we've covered when. But here's the part that barely anyone talks about, and honestly, it might be the most important part of this whole story. What cooking actually did to how humans lived together. So beyond the calories and the brain growth, cooking did something else that completely reshaped how early humans lived. It created a reason to gather. Think about it. A fire needs tending, Cooked food takes time to prepare, and eating a cooked meal takes way less time than the hours of nonstop chewing raw food requires. All of that freed up time and shared activity happened in one place, around one fire, with other people. Researchers think this daily gathering around a fire to cook and eat may have been one of the earliest consistent triggers for organized social behavior. Actual conversation, storytelling, cooperation, and shared routines, instead of just scattered individual foraging. Once your evenings aren't consumed entirely by chewing tough raw food alone, you suddenly have time and energy for something else, talking to the people around you. Some anthropologists genuinely argue that the modern human habit of gathering around food, dinner parties, holiday meals, literally just eating together as a social event instead of pure fuel, traces its roots directly back to this exact shift. And there's a safety angle too. Fire kept predators away, which meant early humans could sleep on the ground instead of needing to climb trees every night like a lot of primates still do. That's a massive lifestyle shift on its own, and it ties directly back to the same technology that was already changing what and how they ate. So here's the actual takeaway. Cooking wasn't just a convenient way to make food taste better. If Wrangham and the researchers building on his work are right, it's one of the core reasons you have the brain you're using to process this sentence right now. A direct trade of digestion energy for brain energy, stretched out over hundreds of thousands of years. And on top of that, it may have quietly built the foundation for humans gathering, talking, and bonding over shared meals, a habit every single culture on Earth still practices today in almost exactly the same basic shape it probably started in. People, gathered around food, together. If nobody taught you the actual science behind this in school, follow. We cover ancient history and human origins like this every single week. Comment which part of human evolution or ancient history you want broken down next, because trust me, there's a lot more where this came from. And if you want more of this same, wait, the science is way cooler than the simple version energy, check out the ancient smoking video linked right here. Completely different topic, same kind of surprising deep dive.